My name is Tracy Manning, and I'm the Senior Conservation Officer dealing with conservation casework for the Church Buildings Council. I'm an accredited conservator, and I provide advice and guidance on the conservation of historic interiors for churches. I also help manage our conservation grants programs. In this presentation, I'll talk about how the faculty consultation process works with regard to conservation and why the conservation of historic interiors matters and what it is we can offer. Conservation in churches is unique. This is because all of the historic objects, fixtures, and fittings are in situ, but often in the very place they were made for and still being used. We all know this, but it's important to remember how unusual this makes our national collection of artworks and furnishings. We also know that unlike other collections, churches are not museums, and they can't offer a museum environment. Historic stained glass windows still have to keep the rain out. Medieval fonts still have to hold water. Brass is set into the floor or walked upon, and silver needs to be handled during services. So this presents us with a challenge when it comes to conservation. First, let's look at the rules. According to the faculty jurisdiction rules, for the conservation, alteration, disposal, introduction, movement, or removal of special historic items, faculty is required. And in these cases, it is mandatory for the parish to consult the Church Buildings Council as part of the faculty application. It's also worth noting that the listing of the building only applies in the case of the introduction of an item. For conservation, alteration, disposal, or movement, it relates to the item itself. And this is important because special objects can still be found in unlisted churches. We also have to remember that the conservation of any object introduces permanent change to that object and shouldn't be confused with like-for-like replacement. This is why faculty permission is necessary, and consultation is the only way that the chancellor will have all the information they need to make an informed decision. So what does special interest mean? There is a wide range of objects of special interest that we find in churches, as you know. I'm just going to run through the types of things I encounter every day, either through faculty or conservation grant applications, or both. It represents a huge range of materials. Some of them, as these examples of historic timber and metalwork, are intrinsic to the fabric of the church, both decorative and functional. From the left, a timber screen and other fittings, carved choir stalls, timber effigies, and painted metal screens. Traditional stained glass windows, like this medieval glass from Morley, delicate Georgian painted glass, such as this window at Dudley, and Victorian windows, like this large east window at Limehouse in London. And even later works like this 1960s engraved glass window in Chippenham by Frank Roper. Because stained glass windows perform the function of keeping the weather out, their conservation can be particularly complex. Paintings and painted objects. Sometimes we find museum quality easel paintings, such as these examples at Cranham and Pontley. There are countless examples of funerary hatchments and other painted objects like this arts and crafts pulpit in London. Some of these objects, like this the portable altarpieces in particular, have security implications because of their perceived value and their portability, and parishes might be worried about how to secure them. Some objects are very simple and utilitarian in nature, but are extremely old and rare, such as this parish chest. Other examples of rare items that are still in use are textiles and vestments, floor tiles, and parochial libraries. Some are dynamic objects that are still functioning, like turret clocks, bells, and bell frames. And with clocks and bells, the conservation repair of one might have implications for the other. And of course, musical instruments such as organs. Carved stone, alabaster, or timber, very often with remains of original and later paint. This also includes elaborate monuments or ledger stones set into the floor. And external churchyard tombs, many of which are individually listed, which not only need to be conserved, but need to be made safe for the public who can access the churchyard. Medieval wall paintings are a feature of many churches. This example on the left shows one of the most common forms of decoration in the 13th and 14th century, which is called masonry pattern, made to imitate ashlar blocks. This was often combined with figurative schemes like floral borders. In contrast is this complete scheme at Stowey from the early 20th century by the Bloomsbury Group artist Henry Strachey. Wall paintings can be hidden under layers of lime wash and can be unexpectedly discovered during building works, like this dramatic example on the top right. It's important to be aware that wall paintings can be hidden under lime wash or emulsion paint in many churches, and to be aware of this when programs of redecoration or repair start. This is an example of medieval decoration being uncovered by a conservator at Criston. So establishing what is of special interest can be obvious or can be more challenging. That's where the parish's statement of significance, input from DAC advisors, the DAC and Church Buildings Council are all important. Advice from the CBC can also help with the planning and grant funding of conservation work, and many of the examples I've shown you today did receive conservation grants, either for report or treatment. And my colleagues John Webster and Ruth Smart will go into more detail on the grants program. In order to give conservation faculty advice and to advise on grants, the Council has 6 specialist committees that it relies upon, made up of 54 specialists, such as architects, historians, curators, and conservators. Much like regional DACs, we consult with our specialist committees, and depending on how we have been consulted, we pass that advice on to you and the parish or directly to chancellors. This might be particularly useful when you don't have access to the relevant specialist on your own DAC. Some DACs arrange to share advisors, which is something you may want to consider. And if you're looking to recruit a new advisor, do get in touch with us to see if we might be able to help. So why is it important to look after the objects in our churches and pay attention to their condition? As they are often the most fragile item in a church building, their condition can be an early indicator of more serious problems. They will respond to change more quickly and dramatically than the building itself. For example, at this church on the left, its poor condition of this monument meant that the parish wished to repair the flaking paint and make it look more presentable. But the real issue was finding out why it was flaking so dramatically. A leaking downpipe behind the monument caused the paintwork, which was oil-based, to detach. The first step in conserving the monument had to be repairing the downpipe and making sure it was working at an appropriate capacity so that it didn't leak again. Once this was repaired and the wall had an opportunity to dry out, the conservation of the monument could start. And on the right, elements of this important 16th century monument were splitting apart, making it dangerous and structurally unstable. In this case, a project team was put together, including a structural engineer, who established that there was severe subsidence in the side chapel due to a collapsed subterranean tomb. A plan was drawn up for the dismantling and conservation of the monument, whilst major works were carried out to the floor and subfloor. And after this was completed, the monument was rebuilt independent of the wall. So in both of these cases, the severity of the building defects may not have been noticed as quickly had the damage not been evident in the monuments themselves. When looking at damage in our fragile fixtures and fittings, it's worth thinking about the underlying reasons for the damage before just treating the symptoms. Another factor to consider when looking at objects in our churches is what to do when change is introduced. My colleagues in the Net Zero team will talk to you more about that, but it's worth keeping in mind that any change, including changes to the type, efficiency, or frequency of heating, or even draft proofing or redecorating, might have implications for more delicate furnishings. This is an example where heating was to be introduced. Here, a radiant chandelier heater in a chapel with wall paintings. And often specialist input is needed in these cases. And in this case, we were able to fund an environmental performance assessment and a report on the wall paintings. So it's all about trying to make sure that work is done in the right order. And that means maintaining and repairing the building first, understanding the condition of the artwork, getting good specialist advice, and balancing conservation need with the needs of the parish. We know that conservation work comes down to the hard work of PCCs, and our aim is to support you, to support them, however we can, whilst encouraging best practice. And just quickly, for conservation advice, we have short downloadable leaflets on the conservation of many types of objects that I've discussed today, available on the Church Care website. There's also information available from Historic England and ICON, the Institute of Conservation. To find a conservator, it's best to refer parishes to the ICON Find a Conservator facility. There are also lists of accredited specialists for organs and clocks. We strongly support the use of accredited conservators, which will not only offer the best possible outcome for the object, but will put the parish in a better position when applying for grants. Finally, these are our contact details. Please don't hesitate to contact us should you need advice, and we'd be happy to help. Thank you.